Sally Labud was among the dozens of struggling swans who wanted to become stars in Hollywood. She would get occasional jobs on music videos, but never any high-paying speaking roles, so Sally worked as a babysitter to make ends meet, and on her days off, she would play with her stuffed animals. Her favorite was Fiona, because Fiona looked just like her. Sally had a roommate and a busy life, but when she looked out the window at all of the families playing together, she felt something was missing. One Sunday, her roommate Evie told Sally about the book she was reading, about a woman who traveled to the land of her ancestors, to the country of Croatia. Sally's heart jumped. That was the land of her ancestors, the Labuds, who had come to America from Croatia. When Evie heard this, she said, "Sally, why don't you come with me to Croatia this summer? Maybe you'll find your family." Sally was overjoyed. To prepare to meet her relatives, she studied the book. She couldn't find any pictures of creatures who looked like her, but she did notice they drank a lot of something called rakia. Must be really good for you, she thought. Grandma Anna starts drinking rakia at 10 a.m., and she looks very happy. Sally was so excited she didn't even mind having to deflate for the long flight to Croatia. They had 2 transfers, first in Chicago and then London.
If your flight is departing
Sally loved the lady in the London airport. She was skinny, just like Sally when she had to squeeze back into her box for traveling. Sally was in Zagreb, the capital of Croatia. The first Croatian she ever met was Antonio. She wondered if the Labuds would be as handsome and as kind as he was. He drove them to the cinema, their home for the next 2 weeks. There were so many of Evie's friends. Some were Croatian, like Rebecca and Ora and Paula and Carlo. Janet and Bennett were from the U.S., Sophia was from Italy, Vicky and Brigitte were from Sweden, and Oscar came from Slovenia. How could she ever remember all their names? Sally was so excited to explore Zagreb, to travel the path of her ancestors. Perhaps they flew above those trees, or nibbled on that plant life. She was a little worried when she saw houses for cats. How big were the cats? But then she saw the sleeping kitty and knew she didn't need to worry. True to her Croatian heritage, Sally found she liked gelato and pizza just as much as pond weeds. One day Sally peeked in and said, "Carlo, what's happening?" He said, "Shh, it's a surprise party. It's Janet's birthday." And that wasn't the only party. After opening night, everyone went to a fancy restaurant and got gifts of small, rubber, yellow waterfowls. How festive! After a week of hard work, it was time to head to Karlovac. In a city with 4 rivers, surely there would be some Labuds for her to meet. The team visited the world's smallest tourist shop and ate holy donuts. Sally saw a frog and some ducks, but alas, no Labuds. Soon Sally and her friends were on the road again. Now we're getting somewhere, thought Sally. We are headed towards lots of water. The Adriatic Sea. In Split, they were great tourists, browsing through the old Roman palace, eating pizza. Sally saw a dragon and hid, but Carlo said, "Don't worry, I'll protect you." The next morning, coffee first.
Un po' di caffè?
Questa è la cosa più strana che abbia mai fatto in vita mia.
Ah, sì.
Sally, you have to tell me, why on earth did you get such an idea to go all the way to Croatia?
Then on to the ferry for Havre Island. Sally loved the art house where they were staying, and she had 2 new friends. She was so excited about going to the sea, she could hardly eat the scrumptious pasta dinner her friends made. Well, just a bite.
Mangia.
Yes.
Eating.
I see, I understand.
The grapes?
Tomorrow. You have to wait until tomorrow. She wants to take a swim.
Well, it depends. Here it's probably around.
Finally, she was off to the beaches. Labuds, I'm coming to find you. She saw 2 Swedes and lots of boats. But no Labuds. The next day, she tried another beach. All day searching, but no Labuds. Trying to make friends, she offered to babysit the children, but alas, they could not understand her. Sally was so sad she hadn't found her family. That night was their last on the island, and Sally didn't want her friends to know how sad she was. But Brigitte knew. After Sally was deflated for travel, she poured her heart out to Brigitte. Back in Zagreb, Brigitte and Evie greeted their friend Dragana, who had come all the way from Sarajevo. Then Brigitte had an inspiration. Dragana would be the perfect person to speak to Sally. Dragana said,
Charlie.
I think she's lost. She said, you can come with us, because our family is big. You can come with IYMS. There are a lot of my friends there. You can also be my friend. Sally was overjoyed to become part of this family. Imagine they didn't care that she had a big orange nose and spoke a strange language and ate pond weeds and beetles. Sally went to the boss Antonio and said, if I'm going to be a part of IYMS, I want to help out. Antonio was so kind. There was definitely a need for a swan in the closing ceremony. I mean, what is a closing ceremony without a swan? And then he said, why don't you stay for the Four River Film Festival in Karlovac? Sally couldn't believe he wanted her to stay in Croatia. But what about my visa, she said. And Antonio said, don't worry. I will stamp your visa because I have stamps. Carlo, the mad genius of IYMS, found the perfect spot for Sally on the stage. She could watch all of her new friends, Yura, Marta, Erin, and Diego, as they set up for the live telecast. And then, time for another party. Sally got to sit next to her new friend, Dragana. After the party, Sally went for a swim under the full moon. She had never been happier. Then she heard, good evening, in an accent she had never heard before. She turned and saw another swan. He looked like her, but not exactly. He said, allow me to introduce myself. I am Sebastian Bejod. Oh, you're such a gentleman, Sebastian, cooed Sally. And you are such a beautiful lady. And Sally blushed. Isn't this a beautiful moonlit night, he said. As they swam, Sally told him all about coming to Croatia from America. And what about you, she asked. Sebastian told her he was a refugee from Syria. He was maimed during the war there, and sometimes others stared at him because he had no wings, just golden scars. But when I look at you, I forget all that sadness. From that night, Sally and Sebastian were inseparable. Soon they had a little cygnet they named Sonia. They promised Sonia that the next year they would take her to the summit in Sweden to be with Brigitta and Dragana and Antonio and all of her other family members. And they lived happily ever after.